Hello everyone, in this video we're going to go through some exam questions for the AWS Cloud Practitioner exam. So these are real questions, so it's quite possible that you'll get a couple of these in your exam if you decide to take it. So just to let you know, the way AWS works, it has a big bank of questions. There's literally a few hundred different questions. When you go to sit your exam, you'll get around 65 of those questions. If you study everything inside the bank, you're basically going to see all the questions. There's going to be a couple of new questions that's not going to be in the bank that AWS are just trying out for the first time. But for the most part, if you go through all the questions, you'll see the same, or if not the same, very, very similar ones in the actual exam. So just to start off with the first question, under the shared responsibility model, which of the following is the customer responsible for? So we want to know, us as a customer using AWS, what are we responsible for? So the first one is ensuring that the disk drives are wiped after use. So this is not our responsibility, this is AWS, because the disk drives are part of the hardware. Secondly, this is the same idea, ensuring that the firmware is updated on the hardware. So firmware is just software that's installed on the hardware, but the software that it's installed is not accessible for us to update or change. It's built into the hardware itself. So again, this would be AWS. But for C, this is what we're responsible for. We want to ensure that the data is encrypted at rest. So if we're using an AWS service, such as a relational database, or maybe we're using S3, it's our responsibility for when that data is sitting in an AWS data center that it's encrypted. The final one is ensuring that the network cables are 6 or higher. So again, this is a hardware problem, or it's a hardware responsibility. So this would be AWS also. Moving on to the next question. The use of what AWS feature or service allows companies to track and categorize spending on a detailed level? And it's really important with some of these questions that you read them carefully and pick out the main points and the key words, because you might come across a question and you kind of see two answers and you're not sure about them. You're like, oh, they both sound kind of right. And then when you look at the question in more detail and you just see a key word such as, okay, on a detailed level, it wants to know on a very detailed, granular level. So it's going to be this one or this one. Let's just start off at the bottom, AWS Marketplace. This is not the correct answer. The AWS Marketplace is somewhere where you can go as an AWS customer and you can buy a ready-made solution either from AWS or from another third party. AWS budgets, this is one that you might get a little bit confused with, because budgets deal with allowing a customer to set certain limits. So for example, you could say that you don't want to spend any more than €200 or $200 each month. So you could set a budget for that. Or you could also set an alert within budgets to say that you want to be notified via email you spent over €150 or dollars a month. Then the next one is consolidated billing. So this isn't right either, because consolidated billing is the ability for you to group multiple AWS accounts under the one roof. So let me give you an example. So if you had AWS and you were using it in multiple parts of your organization, but they weren't set up under the one account. So for example, let's say you had an IT department and they started off with using AWS first, and they're using many different services, and then your HR department started to use AWS for other certain features, and then you had a finance department which was using your AWS, and maybe you had a legal department as well, making sure that all rules and regulations were met within the company. But the problem is you have 4 different individual accounts for each organization. What you can do then is you can bring them all together using consolidated billing. That means that our first answer is the correct one. It's using cost allocation tags, And the way this works is when you're creating a service, let's say for example you're creating an EC2 instance or you're creating a SQS service, there's a key and a value pair you can associate with that instance or that service. And you could say, for example, environment as your key, and you could say environment as your key, and for your pair you could use prod or the word production maybe. So then you know when you look at that, you know that that is your production either EC2 or that's your production SQS service that you're using. And if you had multiple EC2 instances for your production, which more than likely you would, you can then group them together. You can get a detailed description of how much you're spending on your production environment, how much you're spending on your testing environment, and how much you're spending on your development environment. The next question is, which service stores objects, provides real-time access to those objects, and offers versioning and lifecycle capabilities? Okay, so looking at the first one, we have Amazon Glacier. So this is an object store. So it does store the data as objects, so it meets the first criteria. The problem is the real-time access. So with Amazon Glacier, it's really for archival. It's really for data that's not going to be accessed all that frequently. So you spend less money on AWS Glacier, but the problem is then if you want to access your data constantly, it's not going to work for you. It's going to take too long. It could take, a matter of minutes up to a matter of a couple of hours. So it wouldn't be suitable for real-time access. The next thing is AWS Storage Gateway. This doesn't apply to this at all. It doesn't even store information. It's just a way in which you can use to get your data from an on-premise site into the cloud. And if you want to do that, one of the options would be to use an AWS Storage Gateway. So again, not the right answer for this. And then if we move on to Amazon S3, this is exactly what we want. So Amazon S3 is storing objects. S3 can provide real-time access to those objects. So you can query your S3 bucket as many times as you want. There's not going to be a delay. There's only going to be a delay of a few milliseconds or a couple of hundred milliseconds. And it also has versioning. So if you have data in your S3 bucket and you update that bucket with a file with the same name, or you go and delete that, let's say it's an image, if you go and delete that image in S3, you will also have a version of the deleted image if you have versioning turned on. And then lifecycle capabilities, again, lifecycle capabilities is when you have, let's say, data stored in S3 and you create a lifecycle method, and that method will take the data that's been stored once it's been stored after maybe 7 days, and it's going to store it in a different type of storage. It's going to go and put it in Amazon Glacier maybe, or maybe it's going to put it in Amazon infrequently accessed, which is the same as, or maybe it's going to put it in Amazon S3 infrequently accessed. Then it would be a little bit cheaper than just having it sitting in S3. Or you could also, change the life cycle to go and only do it after 35 days, or only put it in a different storage after maybe 12 months or something. And then finally, D is not the right answer because EBS is Elastic Block Store. So block store is different from object store. So it's not the right answer. So in the next question, what AWS team assists customers with accelerating cloud adoption through paid engagements in any of the several specialty areas? So looking at the first one, AWS Enterprise Support. This is already when you have an established relationship with Amazon, you already have a system with them, or you have services with them and you're using them, and you're having a problem with something. So that's the support team. So it's not really accelerating your cloud adoption, right? It's more for when you're established and you're using AWS and you have an issue, you'd reach out to the enterprise support team. And again, as the name suggests, it's for enterprise support. It's not everyone has access to this feature. They have access to some support features, but not all. It depends on the type of tiering that you have within AWS. And obviously, the better the service you want, the more money you have to pay to get that service. Secondly, you have AWS solution architects. Usually you'd have maybe one, maybe two solution architects helping you develop out your AWS architecture, but you wouldn't have a team of them, and you also wouldn't use a solutions architect really to accelerate your cloud adoption. They more produce high level documentation, sometimes maybe charts and diagrams on what it's going to look like, but they're not going to help you actually implement the whole lot from scratch. So that's when we have our third option, AWS Professional Services. AWS Professional Services help with everything. So from going and creating your solution architecture to implementing whatever that architecture is, and then bringing you from start to finish and really holding your hand and helping you go from, let's say, having no infrastructure in the cloud to having your whole infrastructure in the cloud, if that's something that you want. And then finally, an AWS Account Manager. Again, this is not a team of people. This is usually one person that's allocated to you. Again, usually when you're more established within AWS, you've been using services for a while, and you sort of just have someone to lean on to for architecture advice or something like that. And then finally, a customer would like to design and build a new workload on AWS Cloud, but does not have the AWS related software technical expertise in-house. So they don't have any experts within the company. Which of the following AWS programs can a customer take advantage of to achieve that outcome? Okay, so the company, it's heard about the AWS cloud and it wants to move some of its infrastructure, or maybe it wants to move all of its infrastructure to the cloud, but it doesn't really know what to do. It doesn't know where to start. So what can we do? First one is AWS Partner Network, technology partners. So this isn't a bad answer, but it's not the best answer. We'll find a better one as we read through this. And this is because the technology partners are more focused on the technology part. They're not so much focused on the business side. So they're not working with you as a business getting the right solution. It's more so, okay, we've got a plan, we know exactly what we want, this is when we want it by, and this is our budget. And then the technology partners will go in and build out the technology. So the next point is the AWS Marketplace. So again, I think it was mentioned before in one of the other slides, the Marketplace is a place where you can go as an AWS customer to buy ready-made solutions. It doesn't actually help if you have nobody that has expertise within the company. Using a marketplace would not help you, because you wouldn't know how to use the technology once you've bought it. So then the next answer is the right answer. It's to use AWS Partner Network's consulting partners. So consulting partners will work with the business. They'll find out what the problems is with the business, the problems that they're having, and then once they've identified them problems, they'll come up with a solution that they can use within AWS, and then they'll work through and they'll get technology experts to implement that technology. And then finally, AWS Service Catalog. This is just a service within AWS that allows you to manage and control many different types of services. Again, this service is not used to help you if you don't have the technical expertise already within your team or organization. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.